Hi, my name is Brian Fox. I recently sat down with all 9 town council and school committee candidates to learn more about them. Questions were developed by myself and members of the Wakefield, Massachusetts Community Page Facebook group and were not reviewed by WCAT, and no candidate was provided a final list of questions ahead of time. For preparation, I reviewed all 9 candidates' voting and town census records back to 2016, looked at posts on local Facebook groups, campaign pages, conducted online searches, and read the Wakefield Daily Item. These interviews were not done at the request of WCAT, and the views expressed are my own as an individual. Lastly, thank you to WCAT for helping me with this huge undertaking, and thank you to all the candidates who are running for a volunteer position in our town. Hey, thanks for joining me tonight. My guest is Julie Smith-Galvin, incumbent town councilor, hoping to be reelected to her second term in office. How are you doing tonight, Julie?
I'm great, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So as you said, my name is Julie Smith-Galvin. I am currently the vice chair of the town council, but I also do many other things. I lived here about 21 years with my husband. We moved here 21 years ago. I was pregnant with my son, who is now a sophomore at UMass Amherst and a 2019 graduate of Wakefield Memorial High School. And I have a daughter, Amelia, who is a senior at the high school this year, having a tough senior year, but working her way through it. I have worked in the energy and environment field my entire career, for about 2 decades for large international publicly traded renewable power companies. And the last 5 years, I've built my own business, took what I had learned at those multinationals and started my own boutique communications firm for renewable energy companies, which is going really well. So that's a little bit about me.
So aside from being an elected member of the Wakefield Town Council, what other local organizations have you been involved in and you are involved in currently?
Sure. So when my kids were growing up, I, like very many moms and dads, I was super involved in the school system. Being a working mom, I wasn't able to do a lot of the during the day work, but I would always pick things like Author Fest, where I could help at night or build websites or, put the books together. Did yearbook at the Greenwood and Author Fest. I was on the first trustees for the Wakefield Academy when that was formed, which was a great experience. And then in the last couple of years, as the kids got into high school, I have been a golf booster mom, and I'm currently a volleyball booster, been a track booster, and likely still have a softball booster season to go, hopefully. I helped form Sustainable Wakefield about a year before I ran for office. That's really what was my impetus to get more involved in public service, was seeing some opportunities around for sustainability and worked with that group, and have since helped form another group called Safe Streets Working Group, which is a grassroots organization that I'm involved with as well now.
You are very busy.
I am a little busy. And WCAT.
Because we're on WCAT, you served on the board with me.
That's right.
So don't forget that.
Oh no, I haven't. That was a great experience.
Until very recently, we're at the WCAT board as well.
Yes.
So you almost completed your first term. What made you decide to run for re-election? Did you not have enough the first time, or?
I actually did give it a lot of thought, because it is a big decision. I think a lot of people just assume that you're going to continue to do it, but I wanted to make sure that I gave it enough thought and that I had a lot of time for it, because it does take a significant amount of time. As I said, my daughter's going to be a senior, so my husband and I are going into a different phase of life, so I'm hoping that will free some time up. But really, I think you spend your first couple of years coming up a learning curve. And while there's a ton of support in town from our town administrator and our departments who really walk us through everything, you start to realize as you're going into your second and third year that there's a cycle, and that can add a little more to the dialogue, and that you're learning a little more about what's happening in town and what the impact of your decisions are. And so I really felt like I had invested time and had come up the learning curve, and there are still a lot of things that I want to get done. I feel like I've made some great strides on things that are important to me, and that we are well positioned over the next couple of years to really make some significant changes and improvements, and I'd like to be around for that.
What do you think your biggest first term accomplishment was?
I would say the establishment of the Environmental Sustainability Committee. People know that I ran on 3 issues: livability, which I really saw as kind of business and quality of life issues, but very much kind of downtown and making sure that we had a vibrant economy, inclusivity, a lot of diversity issues, and then sustainability. And I would say, as I said, my career has been in sustainability. It is something that's very close to my heart. And so I really recognized in Wakefield that while we were doing a lot of environmental things, we kind of weren't putting the words to them, and we weren't always asking ourselves the sustainability questions. And I would say that that's simply all I've done. Is we've now set up an organization, a town committee with 8 members right now. We're about to expand it to 11 members. So people look out and see if we'll have some open positions coming. And it's just been a committee that can look at what's happening in town anyway and ask the questions. What if we look at the high school from this perspective? What if we look at the waste stream from an environmental perspective? And so we ask the questions. It doesn't always mean that we make changes, but I'm really pleased that we are beginning to make some changes and we're asking some questions. We now have a municipal resiliency framework. So we got some funding from the Municipal Vulnerability Program, which is a climate change mitigation program. And so we have a framework now built in town for when we are making large capital decisions, really thinking about it with this sustainability and resiliency lens. So I'm really, really proud of our environmental progress that we've made.
So you mentioned your 3 points you ran on the first time. Do you have any additional ones for the second term, or are you sticking toward to those ones still?
Well, I made them broad on purpose. So I think a lot of
Which
things
makes sense. It makes sense.
I'm a communications professional, so always talking 3 main points. And I knew that when I made them, that livability is it can be broad. Like I have always thought about it as small business in downtown, but I think it is as relevant to things like food security and social issues, and then the diversity and inclusion issues, which I think we've done good things on and will continue to, and then sustainability. So no, I haven't. I've just probably more broadly putting more things in the 3 buckets than I did before.
As long as you have a plan, that's what matters.
I do have a
plan. So what skills do you think you bring to the town council?
That's a really good question. I would say, first, I really think it's my interpersonal skills that are probably the most important thing that I bring. You're in business as well. I mean, there's a lot of debate. Do you hire for skills or do you kind of hire for attitude? And I really think I have a positive attitude. I think I listen to people. I think I'm approachable. And so I think that those skills have served me well. So I'm most proud of those. And then in terms of other skills, I think my communication skills, just at this point in Wakefield's history and where we have been over the last 3 years, with the addition of a new communications director and the revamping of the website and the need for better communications through newsletter, and then certainly with the pandemic and all of the, that was a big challenge in terms of communications. And so Steve has built a great team to do that, but I feel like that is a skill set that I often get called upon just to bounce ideas around, and I feel like I work well with the team on that. So that's another skill set.
So as you know, the national grid work has created a lot of detours for varying lengths of time since it started. My trip to work in normal times takes me down Salem Street, and there's many moorings at unexpected detours. And of course, we also have the issues with the Broadway crossing. So we know what's happened now. Is there a way to reduce issues like that in the future? Or is this something we have to kind of deal with because it's road construction?
I think there are always ways. I will say that I think every project is different. So I can't say, oh, we did this wrong or we should definitely do this in the future. Every project has different players and different challenges. I guess I'll go back to communications. I think in the end, it's really about communications. The Broadway issue seemed to blindside us a little bit. And I'm not throwing blame or anything. I think we were focused on getting that work done, and we're doing the right thing. I think we're doing the right thing. We have to keep it closed because nobody wants a siren, not just at the
No.
Broadway crossing, but at all the crossings. And so we are absolutely doing it. But it's like any project planning. We have to think through what all the eventualities are and what all the intended and unintended consequences are. And then I think we have to be honest when and we don't always know. People think that government knows and we're keeping things away from keeping things quiet. I don't believe that's the truth, but I think it's very hard to kind of get information out in a timely manner, and we can always do better at communications. No doubt in my mind that we can always do better at that.
I mean, I have to assume that nobody planned on the Broadway street closing. I mean, it's not, no one wanted that to happen, so.
Nobody wanted that to happen. And I have a very good friend who I run with who's right on the other side of Broadway. And I kept saying, this week it's opening, this week it's opening. And then of course, we all found out together.
Yeah.
And so no, there's big projects. I mean, I've worked for big companies and I've been the communications person on big infrastructure projects like this. There are always unintended consequences. And the best thing, try to be honest and open. And I believe that that's what we're doing.
So are there any overlooked issues in town that you think could bring a good return on investments? I know the town acquired the land off Butler Ave, and there's talk of what to do with that. There are some other parcels out there.
I was just visiting that piece of land on Friday. I did one of my Walk Wakefield campaign events out there. That's a fascinating piece of land. It's about 11 acres. As you know, and your audience likely knows, we had to buy it because there were allegations that there were environmental problems there, possibly caused by the town. And so we did the right thing and we bought it and we're going to cap it. And then there will be a community discussion, I think, about what goes there. What I like about it is that the town will have an important role and really a say in what goes there. So now it's our land, and if we want to sell it, we can be very prescriptive as to what we want to see go in there. And so I think that hopefully it'll be a balance of some development, but also some open space and trails. I talked to Steve Mayo about it this morning. So I think, and when I say return, I'm not just thinking financial return either. I think there's a lot of ways to define return for a community. Certainly economic strength is absolutely critical, and we've done a good job of that here in Wakefield. But there's also, a return on open spaces and a return on quality of life. And so I would like to see that piece of land give us certainly cover the cost that we have to incur to cap it, but also be something that we can contribute back to the community. I think the herd school is another possibility. Certainly that has been discussed before, and no immediate decisions are being made on it. I think the COVID crisis taught us that having a little bit of flex space is not a bad thing. And as we look at all the construction projects coming up for the town, I think we're likely to continue to use that, but eventually we're going to have to make a decision about that school, and not just about the school, but also what the neighborhood around it feels will work for them.
So you have children one has graduated from Wakefield High, one is a current senior. What are your thoughts on the high school?
On the high school construction project?
I would say whether it's a need to repair the existing building or build a new one. There's talk of building it on the baseball field, possibly on the football field, adding on. What are your thoughts on that? I know there's all kinds of plans being discussed.
Yes, and I will first say I'm not going to speculate on any of it. There are very specific phases to Massachusetts School Building Association process. The good news is that we're in the process, and we're going to have the time and the resources to look at all the different options. I mean, I will say that I am absolutely in favor of something being done. I would lean towards a completely new high school, but that may or may not be necessary. And I think we need to look very closely at what is the existing structure and what the needs are. I certainly think something there. I think for Wakefield students to go from Galvin, which my oldest started at the Galvin before it was torn down and redone. And I think the Galvin Middle School has been a huge asset to Wakefield. I think it's attracted new people here. I think the teachers in our Wakefield public school systems are extraordinary, whether they're working in very bad buildings or state-of-the-art buildings. I have found them to be extraordinary. My kids went through Greenwood, which is one of the oldest buildings, and it's less about the building and more about the community. But having said that, I do think that our high school needs to be certainly upgraded, and we will figure out what the best way to do that is. I understand concerns about fields and investments that have already been made in auditoriums, but it's a little like, we have enjoyed those fields, we have enjoyed those auditoriums. They have served their purpose, and we will make sure that the right decision is made and that facilities continue to exist for theaters and for baseball fields, as well as for education.
I've heard from a few residents in the Salem Street area about the UPS facility off Kimball Lane. Now, I work at an office on Kimball Lane, so I'm very familiar with UPS. And since I have to take a right into their facility, I see what they do every day, and it's crazy around Christmas time, as you can imagine. There's allegedly a rule in Linfield that says that those UPS trucks are required to turn left into Wakefield and cannot go right into Linfield. So a lot of the residents in that area have been asking what can be done about that. Is there anything that can make a Linfield's tax-paying facility drive through Linfield as opposed to taking the left?
Yeah, and I don't have an easy answer for that. I have heard the same speculation. I haven't looked directly at it. I mean, these are the things, as you know, Steve deals with day to day. But of course, if there are issues that are burdensome on people living there, then we have to look at them. I'm actually going out on the 10th to do a walk around that area, because not only is there the UPS issue, there's a lot of development happening out there as well. And I think it's a part of town that is sometimes feels a little disconnected than the rest of town. Although I have to say, I came to Wakefield because my office building was at the Edgewater Business Park. It's what brought me to Wakefield. So I actually think a lot of people do come here because of the amenities in that area. So I don't have a direct question on the UPS. I think it's a fair question, and one that we should definitely look into and certainly think about going forward. And
it's
not
certainly one of the strangest things. And since I work over there and I watch it happening, and I know that UPS prefers to take only right turns to watch them all.
Well, I was just going to say, so they're taking a left, but for usually for fuel efficiency, people only
turn right.
Take right. So it certainly speaks to something unusual.
It's an oddity for the company, that's for sure. Another thing is people are concerned about property taxes rising. The tricky part is always you have services that need to be supplied. Teachers, police, fire department need promotions and raises. You have facilities, but how do we maintain everything we have and grow as a town while also keeping those taxes at affordable ranges?
It is a universal problem with local government, right? I mean, certainly taxes do a lot of good things for our town. And we, as a town, have been very well managed economically. We have our reserves built up. We have enough space for growth, and we have been growing such that we haven't always had to tax up to the 2.5%. Everybody knows there's a cap on that. I remember when my kids were young, we were every year it came down to whether the Greenwood fire station was going to close. And that, we haven't had those kinds of tough discussions because we've had enough balance of growth and services and just good fiscal policy from our finance committee and town leaders. So I mean, did you have a direct question in there, or were we just
No, let's say it's one of the highest ranking questions I've got asked to ask people running for town council. For elderly, I know there's a lot of concern with fixed incomes and people
Yeah,
keep
I will say
questioning
we had
what's
this week.
building.
We did just put the senior tax relief in, which I'm really proud of as well. That was actually voted on before I got in, but getting it through the legislature took a lot of persistence. And so I was involved in those efforts. There is no doubt that it is, it's a problem. It's a problem, not taxes so much as affordability. I would say affordability. And taxes feed into that. So the housing costs being very expensive, and then you layer taxes and cost of living, which is why I think we have to be aware of it and then really creative and find programs that help alleviate in different ways.
Do you have any ideas on how to make Wakefield more affordable considering those circumstances? Or is it something that's it's such a balanced issue and there's so many different things to play into it?
It is, I mean, we are definitely still going to have some development going on. I think we have to make it more affordable, and affordability is not necessarily low income. I mean, I think the affordability in this area is something like 100,000, 60 to 80 to $100,000. And so there are different ranges that we have to be looking at. And I think there's different ages. Certainly the fixed income is probably the most troublesome. We need to be very aware of that. And that's where taxes, I don't want to get into water rates, but there's a lot of different things in there. Water, gas. I think when we're setting rates and when we're talking about infrastructure investments, we have to think about what that means for a range of different people in different life circumstances.
As you know, the Wakefield Warrior logo is retired at the last school committee meeting. I know you had voted in favor of the non-binding vote over the logo, which is, I would now consider moot because it's been voted on, but still a hot button issue in town, as you know.
Yeah.
Do you think that the school committee should have waited until after that vote, or were they right to do it now?
Oh, I don't think it's a right or wrong, and I'm not sure
I don't know if I worded that correct. I don't know the right way to say that, but
I know what you're saying. So let me say, I think people probably want to know where everybody stands on the logo, whether the town council.
Aside from taxes, that's the other. I don't know a polite way to say it, but that's
it's fine. So let me just say, I think that first, I don't think that the logo was developed with any bad intent. Nobody wanted to hurt other people. The logo has been a source of pride in this town for a long time. I have a closet full of logo attire. I think that it definitely has come the time to retire it. After I sat through that panel and listened to the panel, it became very clear to me that it's hard to have pride when the source of your pride is a source of pain for others. And so I do think it has to be retired. I did vote to put it on the ballot. And some of that, I made some very strong statements before I voted. It was the most, I've taken 875 votes in town in the last 2.5 years, and that is the toughest vote that I've taken.
That was the impression I got. I
Yes.
know you didn't do it as a rah-rah warrior kind of thing. I watched that entire meeting.
And I really,
easy for any of you. It looked like a very difficult vote.
it was a very difficult vote. And part of mine came down to, and I said very clearly, I worry about it because I think that as elected school committee members, elected town councils, people elect us to make very difficult decisions. And I think that that's what the school committee did the other night. Whether it was right or wrong, they were elected to make that decision. They felt they had the information to make it, and they made it. I personally think they made the right decision. The fact that it's not going to be on the ballot, that was a decision that town council made and the people who made the petition, not that the school commission, the school committee made. So it really wasn't something that they had to wait for. I felt like it was the right thing to do because I didn't think sending those petitioners back to get 10% of the voters in the middle of a winter and a pandemic was the right thing to do. I thought that they had made their case and it could go to the ballot. But at this point, I don't think the school committee necessarily had to wait for them to do so.
On a lighter note and a closing note, Much lighter note, I swear. If you were given a grant to spend $1 million on anything in town, where do you think that money should go?
Wow, that's so exciting.
I hope you can deliver on that, but in theory.
I know it's a theory. Can I like divide it up? Is it like a lottery where I can divide it up and give a little,
Maybe
or
into
you
two
think?
or no more than 3 things.
Okay. I think I would definitely like to have more services for some of our vulnerable populations. I think that as it's no secret that there's a lot of people suffering. There's still the opioid crisis going on. There's still homelessness. We are more and more kind of becoming a close suburb to Boston, and some of the issues that happen in cities are happening here because we're definitely becoming more urban. And I would really, there's nothing wrong with that. I would really just like to make sure that we have services for them, whether it's food or make sure everybody has shelter. So I would definitely put some money into that. I would certainly put money into environmental things. I think we could do way more on solar, and I think climate is the existential issue of our day. And I think that a lot of the municipal work we're on the front lines of it, and things that are done here, we are living in the homes, we are living in the buildings, and we could make changes, I think, and money could go far towards that. And then my third is a little crazy, but I think that with this pandemic and the change in workflow, love to see some sort of a collaborative public-private work from home share space somewhere in town. I just think people are going to be working from home, but we don't want to be, I have sat in this office now for a year and I'm tired of it, but I'd love to go out and see people, a little bit like what Cedric's was doing on Albion for a while.
I was gonna say there was a building on Albion, but
Yep.
I don't know.
And I was a member of that, and it was great. Or even like the AmeriCal, just somewhere where people could go to work, but they could also be a community center. It could be a drop-in center for parents and kids. I would love to see some sort of a mixed use work community center. I think there could be some creative things to do there. So
If
that's
only
how I
there
would
was
spend
an
$1
old
million.
school off Pleasant Street available.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So that's a fun thing to dream about. I might have to come up with a few more other things. But
I hope it's something that could really happen, but
you never know.
You never know.
You never know. Somebody could
Wakefield
win
became Wakefield because a rich man gave money to build a town hall. You never know.
I'm telling you. Exactly. You all have a contest for it.
Thank you for joining me tonight.
Oh, this has been fun. Thanks, Brian.
I hope I didn't give you too many brain busters there. And
no, I really appreciate you doing this. I think that I'm so happy to see so many people engaged in this election. It's going to make us a better town. And the more information we can get out about different positions and values, that's really important.
Great. Well, good luck to you on April 27th. And good luck in your campaign during a pandemic.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks, Ryan. Bye-bye.